Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I would like to start with a reminder that 1 week from today, June 2nd, is the mayoral primary election. So the choice that the city makes next Tuesday will dictate who is on the ballot November 3rd in the runoff. With that being said, Adam, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some time today. Would you like to please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about why you decided to run for mayor this year?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Let me. You can hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, as Nick said, on June 2nd, we have the primary, and this city has a decision to make. The reality is that our city is broken. So I love LA. I love how incredible this city could be and the natural beauty, the diversity, the incredible institutions and sports teams and weather that we have, the opportunity and dreams that so many people follow here. But this city has become a very hard place to live. And this city feels broken in many ways. It's broken physically, whether we're talking about streets and streetlights, or we're talking about homeless encampments and people's feeling about public safety. It's just become a tough place. It's become unaffordable for people. Rents are way too high. It's almost impossible to buy a home here now. It's become very difficult to trust the government. There's no transparency, there's seemingly no accountability, and it's become a difficult spot for this city. But we can do better. And I believe that on June 2nd, we have a choice not to question whether or not the city's broken, but rather to determine who can fix it. And the reality is that there are two insiders and two outsiders in this race. The two insiders have been working at this for the last 4 years. And candidly, the city is in a worse spot than it was 4 years ago. Film production down over 40%, housing production down over 30%, at the lowest level in a decade, despite being in the middle of a housing crisis. We see encampments everywhere today. Small businesses are struggling. Large corporations have fled, and there's less opportunity here. We also obviously see the challenges with our infrastructure, and we're not dealing with it with any urgency. And of course, most notably, we had the fires, and the lack of preparedness was on full display, as well as continuing to not recover with enough urgency and enough efficiency. And we're wasting a ton of money. So the reality is that the insiders have proven what they're going to do in the next 4 years, and it would be more of the same. And this city can't afford more of the same. We need something different. And so there are two outsiders in this race. One of them channels a lot of the anger that people feel, especially related to the fires, channels the distrust of the government, but doesn't have any experience to solve the problems. And the reality is, we are not going to fix this city with ideology. We are not going to fix this city with anger. We are only going to fix this city with results, with real actions. And so we need somebody that has a track record of results, that's able to operate in a complex city environment, in a huge city with a mayor having 44 departments, 50,000 employees, and a $15 billion budget. We need somebody with operational experience and financial experience, not somebody who's going to try to learn on the job. We need immediate action. And I've been an executive for 35 years. I've run small businesses, I've run large corporations. I ran a public company for a decade. I've run numerous nonprofits. I've helped create thousands of jobs, trained millions of people, helped thousands of Angelenos stay off the street, and thousands more get jobs at technology companies when they didn't previously have access. I know how to get things done. I know how to help people. I've dedicated my life to supporting others and helping improve the state of our city and the state of the world. And that's exactly what I would bring to the mayor's office. That's exactly what we need at City Hall. Somebody who can manage the city with transparency and accountability, that can actually get results and solve our biggest challenges. I created a company that started in my apartment with nothing more than credit card debt and a whiteboard, and I was able to build it into the largest education company in the world with 3,000 employees in 25 countries, training over 100 million people around the world. I ran it for 10 years as a private company and 10 years as a public company CEO. So I know a lot about making decisions, optimizing budgets, and dealing with scale. I took those experiences and my network and I applied it to the nonprofit world. I helped build the largest veteran service organization in the country, Team Rubicon, which does disaster relief all over the world, helping cities out of crises, helping cities with disaster readiness, disaster response, and disaster recovery. Three things that LA has failed at. I helped create an internship program to give job opportunities to 18 to 24-year-olds from underserved communities in South and East LA. People who didn't have access to some of the top jobs in the city and didn't have the ability to create careers that mattered. I was able to do over 2,000 internships, and this year alone, we'll do 500 more. And when I sold Cornerstone, my company, in October 21, my wife and I decided to start focusing on intractable problems. And we worked on homelessness, the most intractable problem in this city, trying to understand why is it that we spent $10 billion, we have thousands of people working on the issue, and yet it is not improved. We have encampments everywhere. We can't use our parks. We often can't use the sidewalks. We have encampments in front of schools, daycare centers, senior living facilities, restaurants, grocery stores, and commercial operations. This has to change. We have to take control of our streets and our sidewalks and our parks. We need to deal with this problem with compassion, but with urgency. And we need to do it in a holistic manner. I started an organization a couple of years ago called Better Angels that in just the last couple of years created the most effective homelessness prevention program in this city. We've kept over 4,500 Angelenos housed who were on the brink of eviction. They had already received eviction notices and they were already vulnerable before they got their eviction notice. But we were able to keep 97% of them housed for 98% less than it costs the city once somebody becomes unhoused. We were able to create a new way of delivering services, working with 120 different partners to be much more effective in how services are delivered in the city for the homeless population. But we can still do better. We're working on shelter. We're working on building affordable housing at 1/3 the cost in less than half the time than what the city is doing. There are ways to deal with this epidemic and to solve this problem. We see it in San Francisco today, and we can do it ourselves. San Francisco has eliminated 85% of the encampments downtown in San Francisco. We can do the same in LA. We can solve this problem, and we can address public safety in a meaningful way. LA has less than half the patrols of most other major cities. That has to change. We have to double our law enforcement patrols. We have to bring our police department up to a minimum of 10,000 officers, and we have to modernize the police force and the fire department. It's 2026. It's time to stop pretending it's 1960 and leverage the innovations that are out there to make this city safer and make people feel safe, not just in their neighborhoods, but in their own homes. That's what we can do in LA, and that's what I'm going to do as mayor. I created an operating plan, just like I've done for every other organization I've run in the last 3 decades. That's how you get results. You have to have clear objectives. You have to align teams to those objectives. You have to ensure that you're operating with efficiency and excellence. You have to measure results and hold people accountable. Making changes when things aren't working. This city isn't doing that. We need an operating plan to make it happen. I launched the 7x7 plan. It is 7 specific objectives or goals with 7 tactics to achieve each goal. And they include everything from reducing street homelessness by over 60%, clearing 80% of the encampments, reducing permitting time by 80+%, ensuring that we're doubling our law enforcement patrols, lowering the average cost of rent in the city to make LA more affordable. We can do it, but we need somebody that knows how to get things done. We need somebody that knows how to operate, and we need somebody with the financial discipline and finance experience to optimize the budgets that we have and get real results. We have to fix our infrastructure, clean up our streets, and create opportunity for all Angelenos. And that's exactly what I'm going to do as mayor.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. I think now I'd like to move on to the Q&A portion. So we have sourced a handful of questions from our social media ahead of this event. For those of you here who didn't get to ask anything in advance, please feel free to put it in the chat and we'll start mixing some of those in as well. With that said, I'd like to get started. So we've had a couple of questions related to your experience working in the homelessness issue with Better Angels. Specifically, people want to know what you've learned about the city's response to this crisis and why so many of our taxpayer dollars haven't yielded the results we would like. There's been a lot of frustration people have expressed on this issue.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So, number one, we have to be allocating more resources to prevention. If your house is flooding, you probably should turn off the faucet. We are not going to solve this problem if we don't reduce the number of new people that are coming into the system. So that's number one. Number two, we have to enforce our laws banning encampments. We can't have encampments everywhere. They dramatically affect the quality of life of all Angelenos. Only 1%, well, I shouldn't say only, a total of 1% of our population is unhoused now. And that is totally unacceptable. You can fill a football stadium with the number of people that are unhoused in LA County, and we have to do better. But part of that means we have to enforce our encampment laws and get people off the street because it's impacting 99% of Angelenos who are not unhoused and becoming a huge detriment to commercial operations and small business owners, which make it very hard to build business here, which directly translates to jobs and opportunity for people in LA. So, how do we do that? Well, we have to bring the unhoused population to shelter and wrap services around the shelters. That means we have to better utilize the existing shelter capacity. About 25% of our beds will go unused tonight. Again, unacceptable. We have to make sure that we're fully utilizing our shelter capacity, and we have to build low-cost interim housing, which can be done. Today, we're spending over $85,000 a year on Inside Safe, a program that simply doesn't work. We're putting people into motel rooms and they're coming right back out and back on the street. It's super inefficient and it's equivalent to spending $7,400 a month for an apartment for somebody who's unhoused. There are literally millions of Angelenos that would happily live in a $7,400 apartment in this city. We have to do better. We have to be more efficient. There's the ability to spend just 1 month of that and build interim housing that lasts for 15 years. That's what we need to do. Drive efficiency, make the shelters specialized for the different populations, whether we're talking about drug addicts or people that are mentally ill, or veterans, or single moms, or transition age youth, or seniors, and have the right services at those shelters. This already works. We're already doing it in places like the Downtown Women's Center, which works really well for young moms. It works at Safe Place for Youth, which is dealing with transition age youth. It works at places like Share, which does addiction recovery. We have to promote the programs that are working and replicate those and end the programs that don't work. And there's plenty of money available to do all these things. We just need the will and the focus and the operational experience to make it happen.
Thank you. We had more than a few people, being that this is a seniors event, express frustration that their kids and their grandkids are having to move out of Los Angeles to start a family. What do you think the city can do to help people stay here after they graduate high school and college?
Look, this is one of the main reasons I'm running for mayor is that I have 3 kids. 2 of them are in college. We want them to come back to LA, but this become a very hard place to be. So the cost of living is way too high and apartments are way too expensive. The only way we're going to solve that problem is supply and demand, which means we have to build more housing. We are grossly undersupplied in LA, and we have to get more housing out there. This is all types of housing, not just affordable housing, but workforce housing and market rate housing and middle class townhomes and condos so people can start to own equity and build their families here. The only way we're going to do that is by making LA a much easier place to build. Right now, LA is one of the most difficult places to build in the US, and most national real estate developers and almost all national financial institutions have done what people call redlining LA, where they no longer will invest in Los Angeles. They're no longer building housing in the city of LA. And we could see this very clearly. You don't see any cranes around. You don't see construction projects happening anymore. People aren't building here. And that means landlords can charge whatever they want. There's not enough control of excessive price increases, but there's just not enough housing. You're not going to solve the problem unless there's more competition. So, how do we solve that? Number one, we have to make it easier to build here. We have to fix permitting. We have to lower permitting times by 80+%. And this absolutely can be done in a multitude of ways, leveraging technology, streamlining processes, enabling self-certification by licensed architects and engineers, where the city just does the audits, not approving every single thing, and ensuring that the permits that we require still make sense in 2026. A lot of them don't. That we enable parallel processing of approvals, and we have dedicated teams at places like DWP so that hookups happen fast when a building is complete. None of this is happening today. We also have to make it more predictable to build. If we can shrink the times, we add predictability, which makes it a lot easier to invest because you actually could start to forecast your internal rate of return on a project and be able to invest in housing in LA. And we have to give incentives for people that are building 100% affordable or 100% workforce housing. And that means deferring some of the fees like impact fees until projects are stabilized. That means ensuring that people are getting rapid response from the city when they need help. We have to treat real estate developers and landlords like partners and not like enemies if we want to change this housing situation and make LA more affordable, which is exactly what I'm going to do as mayor.
Thank you. I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat right now asking about public safety. We received some DMs from people who are very upset about a recent LA Times article that claimed LA is supposedly safer than it's ever been before, but by and large, people don't seem to feel that way. I would just ask, what's your reaction to that, and how will you, as mayor, help to actually make the city safer?
Yeah, you can't fight the perception. People definitively feel less safe in the city now. And uniquely, it's not only people feeling unsafe in their neighborhoods, people now feel unsafe in their own homes. And that's really a disaster. We have to do better. The number one responsibility of local government is to keep its citizens safe. And we're not doing it. And I don't care what the absolute numbers say, because the reality is that those absolute numbers are based on a lot of crime that was happening in a very small area of the city. And that's reduced. In particular, violent crime has reduced, but the property crime has spread dramatically and is all over the place. In particular, you have incessant numbers of break-ins in the valley, and people are constantly reporting burglaries, home break-ins, home invasions, and car theft right out of their driveways. We have to do better. LA, like I said, is less than half the patrols of most other major cities. We must fix that. We have to increase the number of car patrols. By doubling it, we have to increase the number of foot patrols in urbanized areas. We need safe corridors. We need to get the number of officers up to 10,000 plus. We need to modernize the force. We're operating the police force, like I said, like it's decades ago. There are tremendous innovations that are being leveraged by other cities around the country and around the world that we're not using. In fact, you don't have to look far. Just go to Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills has completely modernized its police force. It has a digital command center. It's leveraging technology to make its residents safe. And we have to do the same thing as a city. We have to take back control of law and order, and we're simply not doing enough of it. And we have a real opportunity to turn things around, modernize our force, and be much more effective. We also have to create a specialized team that's dealing with the homeless issue, so it's not taking up 40% of the police department's time or 60% of the fire department's time, which is actually what's happening today, and have dedicated teams that are working on that so that our police officers who are trained to fight crime are focused on fighting crime and being proactive and making our streets safer.
Thank you. I'm seeing people express some concern that the mayor in the city lacks the power to get things done without the approval of city council. You mentioned your 7x7 plan, which I'm sure you'll expand on a little bit later. Uh, but could I just ask how you plan to implement this plan, where you might encounter some resistance from city council?
Yeah, so every organization I've run has rules. Every industry I've been in has regulations and norms. And so if you're the CEO, if you're the mayor, you can't blame other people. You are ultimately responsible. The buck stops with the leader. And that means you have to understand the environment you're working in. So, yes, the mayor does have restrictions based on city council. In many other cities, the mayor is the president of city council. That's not true in LA. The mayor needs support from the county board of supervisors because the county controls a lot of budget and controls the Department of Mental Health and the Department of Health Services. But that doesn't mean the mayor doesn't have power. The mayor has tremendous power. The mayor, like I said, controls 44 departments, 50,000 employees, a $15 billion budget, and has the ability to make executive orders. So my 7x7 plan has 49 tactics, right? Seven tactics for each of the seven goals. The majority of those 49 tactics can be done by me as mayor starting day one. So starting day one, we would see real results. We would see real changes in this city without needing any approval from anybody else. And that's the only way we're going to turn things around. We need momentum. We need some small wins that lead to bigger and bigger wins. And we need to shift the narrative and change the direction of this city so that instead of things continuing to get worse and worse, we create a virtuous cycle where things are getting better and better. There are certain things that require approval by city council. I'll give you a very specific example. One of my opponents was the primary supporter of Measure ULA, the mansion tax, which unfortunately also applied to multifamily residential housing, meaning that tax also applied to building market rate housing, workforce housing, and affordable housing. Exactly what the city needs. So instead of it helping those things, it actually hurt and is one of the reasons we have less housing today than we did in 2019. And we're at the lowest level in a decade. We can turn that around, but if we're going to repeal ULA, we need city council to back that. The mayor can operate on the margins on that point, but I can still do all the other things I talked about around permitting, around managing the departments, around driving efficiency. All of that can be done without anybody else's approval, and that's how we get the city to turn around. And quite frankly, those small wins will lead to bigger and bigger wins and a lot of pressure on city council to make the changes needed to keep the momentum going.
Thank you. We had a follower on Instagram who mentioned you talk a lot about transparency, but how could we actually improve that? Isn't the city government just too complicated to really know where our tax dollars are going?
So I ran a public company for 10 years, and you have to be transparent in everything you're doing. It doesn't matter how big your company is. The city absolutely can be more transparent. And if we're more transparent, people will be held more accountable. So how do we do that? Starting day one with a Fix LA platform that I'm going to launch on day one, which will immediately show every single issue in the city reported by residents, whether you're talking about your street or a trash pile or graffiti or a homeless encampment or a broken sidewalk or street. It will show every single permit that's awaiting approval in the city and how long it's been sitting at that stage. It will show every single construction project that's being done by the city and what the original budget was, what the timeline was, and what reality is. Where are we against the milestones? Where are we against the budget? So that things like these constant delays with transit, the absurd overspending on things like the people mover don't happen. And we we also include things like animal welfare, right? Why are we only reporting aggregate numbers in the shelters? Let's report every single animal that's in the shelter. What condition is it in? How long has it been there? Has it been treated for any medical condition? Has it been spayed or neutered? Have we done to protect our animals? What are we doing with the homeless encampments? Let's make everything transparent. If we do that, we're going to immediately make people more accountable because there will be tremendous pressure for people to operate effectively. It will also enable us to start rooting out the waste. There is tremendous efficiency we can gain in so many different areas if we just operate with some basic standards. A lot of the things we do are insane in 2026. There is so many things we could do to automate and optimize what we're doing, free up dollars, eliminate fraud, and reallocate those dollars to things that matter, like public safety and infrastructure, to make this a much better place to live.
Great. We've got something specific here, which is one of our followers talked a little bit about a pothole that's been outside of their house, and no matter how many times they call 311, they can't seem to get it fixed. They'd like to know a little bit about, how they could expect that to change under an Adam Miller administration and what you can do to help with roads and infrastructure and things like potholes.
Yeah, so LA has 7,500 miles of roadway, and streets depreciate like anything else, right? Your house, your chair, everything in your life, your computer depreciates over time. It's worth less over time and eventually breaks down and stops working. Same's true with streets. LA has a lot of traffic, so our streets break down over the course of 15 to 20 years. If we were going to maintain our streets conservatively, we would be repairing about 500 miles of roadway a year. If we want to be more aggressive, we probably have to repair about 300 miles of roadway a year. Last year, we repaired almost 0 miles. This year, the mayor happily reported that we're doing 60 lane miles, which translates to about 20 miles. We used to do 300 to 500 miles a year. Now we're doing almost nothing. That has to change. We have to allocate budget to street services. We also have to be much better at logistics. We have to make sure that we're digging down sufficiently when we're repairing something. We have to be efficient in how we're doing it. And we have to allocate resources for maintenance. I also want to create rapid response crews for trash and for street services so that if you report something, it gets fixed the next day. I don't understand why we have to wait a year to fix a streetlight. We need to operate with urgency and we need to get things under control. We're not doing that and we're not being practical. If people are stealing copper and our streetlights aren't working, we have to do two things. Number one, we have to fight the crime. Let's catch these people who are stealing all the copper and put them in prison. And number two, let's make sure that we're hardening our streetlights so that it becomes virtually impossible. And let's figure out if there's a cheaper way to do solar. Right now, solar is going to be pretty expensive. We have to figure out if there's a better way to do it where there is no copper and we solve this problem. But we have to do things efficiently. When we're working on mobility plans, we have to be practical and efficient about how we're doing it. We're letting ideology trump practicality, and we have to be practical about how we do things to be more effective and actually fix this city, physically and metaphorically.
Okay, here's another good one from the chat. Somebody said they just feel like the city is dirty. When they go downtown, they see trash piled up everywhere and it just smells bad down there. How do you plan to clean up our streets, our public spaces, and our parks?
Yeah, it's really disappointing and quite frankly tragic. I've spent a lot of time all over the city now. You can't go south from City Hall without feeling like we're in a third world. And I've traveled all over the world and I've been to a lot of third world countries. I've been to a lot of developing world places. And the reality is that they are not as dirty as parts of LA. What we're doing is inhumane in many areas. So how do we fix this? Number one, we got to clear up the homeless problem. You got to clear up the encampments. That's part of what's making the city so dirty. Number two, we have to properly staff and manage our sanitation teams. And again, enable for rapid response. That Fix LA app or platform would immediately also deal with big piles of trash that are showing up around the city so that those get dealt with immediately. rapid response using modern logistics to deploy to those places right away. We also need to do things that other cities are doing. There's a new company called Throne. We need more public-private partnerships like this that create these very small, self-contained, essentially porta potties that they clean and monitor, that you use your phone to open and close, that only allows you to be in there for a set period of time so you can't sleep there or do drug deals there. And it's very effective. It's working in all other cities. LA has almost no public bathrooms. It's part of the reason whole parts of the city smell disgusting. We can solve that. But again, we need to get rid of fraud and waste to reallocate budget to infrastructure. We need to be leveraging public-private partnerships where they make sense to do this more effectively. And we have to be thoughtful in how we're leveraging and operating things like sanitation. We also have to deal with our recruitment problem in City Hall. We've been terrible at recruiting. Part of what Cornerstone did was recruitment. We dealt with recruitment, onboarding, training, and development. I know how to do these things. I know how to get really effective working environments and have attractive places for people to work that have pipelines of candidates where you get top people coming in for jobs, where you're training them efficiently, you're getting them up to speed, and you're getting them out there doing their jobs, and you're retaining the people. And this city has done a terrible job of that, and that's part of the reason we have issues in all these areas. But LA should be one of the most beautiful cities on earth. We have incredible beauty here. We have the beaches and the mountains and the parks and the trails and the weather, but we're letting our city fall apart. And if you subscribe to the academic research, that kind of disrepair actually leads to more crime. So it's not only a sanitation and quality of life issue, it's also a public safety issue, and we have to address it. And I will as mayor.
Well said. Fires and disaster recovery are an issue that's top of mind with voters in this election. I'm seeing a couple messages in the chat asking what specifically you can do to adequately prepare our fire department and our emergency services for the next natural disaster.
So when I met the couple of Marines who started Team Rubicon, I thought this is an incredible idea. Take the experience of veterans to address chaotic environments and have them do humanitarian aid, and in so doing, give them purpose when they come back home. And I became chairman of Team Rubicon over the course of a decade. We grew that from a tiny nonprofit in LA to over 150,000 volunteers responding to disasters all over the world. And like I said, we do disaster readiness, disaster response, and disaster recovery. And LA has failed at all three of those things. And we still are not prepared for the next disaster, which will inevitably come at some point. We are no better off than we were in January of 25. And that's ridiculous. We should be doing so much better. That means better coordination between emergency management, fire, and police. It means equipping our fire department effectively. It means leveraging innovation, modernizing our fire department, who is operating literally like it's 1960. We have the same number of stations as in 1960. We're using much of the same equipment as back then. We have the same staffing level. We are very inefficient in how we're coordinating at times of disaster and even how we're dealing with response. We're not able to leverage the pools that are there. So even if we were dumb enough to clear out two different reservoirs at the same time, and were so ill prepared that we did not forward respond when we had a generational level warning of fire danger, we still should have been able to leverage and we had lack of water because of the inability to turn off residential water to focus on water for the fire department. We still should have been able to use the pools. And we still should have been able to leverage better coordination, and we weren't. And we have to be better prepared. We can do all of that. In fact, much of this can be done with that same money I'm talking about, optimizing how we're doing business, optimizing how we're managing things, driving more revenue from the assets that we have. The airport, the seaport, which is the largest seaport in the Western Hemisphere, the utilities, all of which enable us to drive more revenue. We can create the funds or reallocate the dollars to the things that matter, and public safety matters tremendously. It is the number one responsibility of government, and we have to do better. There is much more we can be doing to keep us safer from disasters. We also have to respond better after a disaster, right? The recovery should be much more urgent. And I don't just talk about this stuff, I actually do it. So when the fires hit, within 6 days of the fires starting, Better Angels pivoted our prevention program to start giving out fire assistance to people who were impacted by the fires. So monetary assistance to people that were extremely vulnerable and then lost their home and or their job because of the fires. And we did that for ultimately for thousands of Angelinos. We also immediately pivoted our tech team at Better Angels to build what we called the Disaster Relief Navigator. This was something that was used by over 8,000 families ultimately to determine their personal circumstances and what benefits and opportunities were available to them based on their very unique situation, their personal situation. And we did that in conjunction with Imagine LA. We had that program ready within 2 weeks of the fires starting. But the mayor's office wanted to roll it out, and the mayor's office actually delayed the rollout by another 3 weeks at a time where every minute mattered. And so, as impactful as that program was, it wasn't nearly as impactful as if we had just deployed it immediately when it was ready 2 weeks after the fire started. We're not operating with enough urgency. I called up the city because Team Rubicon has 30,000 volunteers in Southern California and said to the mayor's office that we have 30,000 volunteers ready, willing, and able to clear all the lots that were impacted by the fires and do testing on toxicity levels of the soil to make sure that we are cleaning up and getting people back to the road to recovery. And the city said, "How much is that going to cost?" And I said, "It's free. We'll raise philanthropic dollars to do the work that we have to fund. We will do it for free. We just want to get going right away." They said, "That's amazing. We'll come back to you." They never came back to us. All they ever had Team Rubicon do was manage traffic in the Palisades. Clearly, the city needs to learn how to operate with urgency and how to leverage public-private partnerships. So I know how to get things done. I know how to act with urgency, and that's exactly what we need if we're going to turn this city around.
I think we've got time for just a few more questions, but before we do, I'm seeing people asking for some specifics from your 7x7 plan, so I just wanted to give you some time to briefly elaborate on that before we get to the final questions.
Yeah, so again, it's seven specific goals to turn this city around, and That's reducing street homelessness by 60% and clearing 80% of the encampments. I say 80 and not 100% because I'm a realist. There's going to be some portion that's difficult to move, but even that 20% needs to go to designated areas and not in front of commercial operations or residential areas, and not preventing us from using our parks and sidewalks, and certainly far, far away from schools and daycare centers and senior living facilities. We got to lower the average rents by 10%. Plus, the only way we're going to do that is building more housing, which is why we also need to reduce permitting time by 80+%, which absolutely can be done. I detailed some of the ways we can do that. We need to double law enforcement patrols and bring back law and order in this city. Also, ensuring that we are making patrols a priority so that people get fast response. People know if they call the police, they're going to show up quickly, and we're able to be proactive in how we're dealing with law and order. It means rebuilding 1,500 miles of roadway. Like I said, we're not maintaining our infrastructure, and it's something we absolutely need to do. It also means creating 100,000 new jobs. This is a city that should be driving way more opportunity. I talked about those public-private partnerships on the disaster front. We also need to be doing it with the economy. There's much work that can be done with businesses. I've been in business for 30 plus years. I know how to help businesses. I know what needs to be done. I would personally chair a public-private economic council with the top economic leaders in the city, one that also needs to represent the cultures of this city and make sure that we're upskilling our workforce and building effective workforce development programs. Mayor Bass dismantled the workforce development programs that we had in the city. We need to bring those back and make them even stronger. We need to prepare our young adults for a world of AI. We need to prepare people for jobs of the future and not the jobs of the past. And it's something I have a lot of experience doing that we absolutely can do. And we need to bring LA into the 21st century. There are tremendous opportunities to modernize what we're doing. And this should be one of the smartest cities in the world. That will free up a lot of budget to go do the things that matter. And to me, it's a priority starting day one.
Thank you. Could you speak just a little bit briefly about the state of the race and your path to victory?
Yeah, like I said, two insiders, two outsiders. So the insiders obviously had their time and have gotten the city to the place it's in now. So I don't think we can afford another 4 years. I can tell you in all the jobs I've done, if you fail at your job for 4 years, you get fired. You don't get another 4 years to prove yourself. And there's two outsiders, and one of them, again, has no experience getting any of these things done. So the question is, who's going to advance in the primary? Only two advance. One of the two is going to be Karen Bass. Karen Bass is the incumbent mayor. She has union support because of contracts that she did, which unfortunately did not get much back for the city in return for those contracts. She also has endorsements from the political establishment because she's been the sitting mayor and because she's been in Congress. But Karen Bass will not win in the runoff against a Democrat. She will win in a runoff against a Republican. And that's why she's been pushing for the Republican to be the other person she's running against. So the question is, who of the three of us will advance? And the math is such that only about 650,000 people are going to vote in the primary. And because of the votes that Karen Bass has locked up, only about 150,000 votes will determine who's next to advance. So, meaning whoever gets 150,000 votes is going to be the one to advance. And while one of my opponents has a lot of national press right now and a lot of national attention, people outside of California, people outside of LA, bots, and young people don't vote in the primary. And so this is about primary voters. And I have a clear path to 150,000 votes. So the game now is making sure the word's out there and making sure that people are out there talking about the election. So tell your friends, tell 20 people, tell your families. Make sure people know to vote Miller on June 2nd and make sure they vote. We need people to turn in their ballots because that's how I'm going to run against Karen in the fall. And the reality is, if I'm running against Karen Bass, I will be the next mayor of LA. So the critical moment is not November 3rd. The critical moment is June 2nd. And we need everybody voting and we need the word out there. So tell your friends, make sure people know to vote Miller on June 2nd. And if you want to learn more, you can at votemiller.com. I talk about all the details of the 7x7 plan, all the details on my background, in my experience, and how we're going to turn this city around. I love LA. This is an incredible city, but I know it could be so much better. And I want to make LA as good as it should be. I want to make it a place where your kids and grandkids want to build their families. I want it to be a place where people have opportunity and get to enjoy all the amazing diversity and creativity here. I want it to be a place where we are the center of entertainment for the world. We're the center of physical AI for the world. We are the center of improving the opportunity for people all over LA. And that's why I'm running for mayor to make LA as great as it can be. So vote June 2nd to fix LA and let's turn the city around.
Beautiful. I know we are up against the time here, so I would just like to say to everybody, I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question. We will be hosting another one of these town halls on Thursday, so if you'd like to ask a question in advance of that, feel free to DM us on Instagram or any other social media, and we'll try to include it next time. Adam, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share before we go here?
Yeah, I think that just the last thing I'll say is that as everybody knows, we have a lot of issues in this city. There's a lot of different problems: homelessness, housing and affordability, public safety, infrastructure. Also, we didn't talk about the Olympics and the need to bring businesses back, the need to bring Hollywood back, the need to create more opportunity for people across the board, and the need to fix our infrastructure and modernize our city. All of those things require somebody with the operational skills to actually have results and deliver on the promise of LA. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So remember, tell your friends and vote Miller on June 2nd, and let's fix LA. Thank you all.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. I believe that will conclude our town hall today. Please, we hope to see you Thursday if you'd like to hear more from Adam. And like you said, please remember to vote June 2nd. Thank you all.
Thank you.